Alright, welcome back. So today we're going to be making cutscenes. This is something that's been asked for quite some time. So you might notice that my video numbering is different. This is supposed to be video number 59 in this series, but since I feel like people could do this cutscene stuff without needing to follow the other 58 parts, I mean, if you're just coming here for cutscenes, this is going to help you. So let's take a look. I've got this project, and you can find it on GitHub, or you can be using your own project, but I'm just going to hit play, and let's see our little cutscene play out. So we're going to have our scene fade in. We're going to walk forward. We're going to walk right. We're going to ask ourselves a little question, and then now we can control our character and begin the adventure. So thanks for joining me, and let's dive right in. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is first I want to clean up my prefabs a little bit. So my player prefab, if you open this up, you can kind of see there's some things that I've added that aren't part of the actual prefab. You can see the things that are grayed out that are part of the prefab, and the things that aren't grayed out currently aren't. So if I click on the player, I want to go to my overrides. Maybe it's not overrides. Let's open the prefab. Yep, nope, those are both there, so I guess that's fine. But I want this prefab to be the one that's in my actual prefabs folder. And I think right now it's not. If I open the one that's in my prefabs folder, yeah, this one doesn't know what all that other stuff is. So I might be breaking stuff here, but I'm going to delete that player prefab. Yep. And the actual player prefab is this one, because this knows, yep, it knows all that stuff. All right, cool. So I'm going to go back, and I know where my player is. Now I want to have an opening cutscene to my game, so when the player goes to choose new game, I want to have a little cutscene in the house where the player starts up by the bed, moves to a certain place, a little dialog box pops up, and then and then the player can control the game. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to my scenes folder here. I'm going to grab my house interior. I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Control D. I'm going to change this from house interior to opening cutscene. And then I'm going to open this up. And I want to, this is missing its prefab, so let's delete that. Yep, told you I had to break stuff by doing that. Go to my player, and I'm going to drag this prefab into the scene. Now this has some objects on it that are from a Patreon tutorial, this lighting effect, so I'm just going to turn that off. No big deal. I want my player to be, let's put him at 0, -2.5. So nice even position like that. Alright, and let's make sure that all of these are set up. Cool. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be using a Unity system called Timeline in order to make our cutscene. We could use the Unity animator. However, Timeline is a way of taking the Unity animator and making it a little more organized when you're going to have to manipulate multiple objects at once like we are. So I'm going to add a new object to the scene, create empty, and I'm going to call this my Timeline Manager. And I'm going to add a component to this, and the component I'm going to add is called a playable director. Now my update method I want to be game time. My wrap mode I'm going to have that at none, and I want it to play on awake. Now you can change that play on awake. Like for example, if you wanted a cutscene to happen when your player entered an area, you could have a trigger, and then when your player enters the trigger, you could tell the playable director to play the timeline cutscene that it has. Now the other thing I have to make is a timeline asset, and this is actually the third time I've recorded this video. So I already made a folder in my assets folder for timeline, and I'm going to delete this just to show you how to create a timeline asset. Delete. Alright, so I made a folder for timeline. Go ahead and right click, and we're going to create, and we want to make a timeline, and I'm going to call this opening cutscene. Now I'm going to go back to my timeline manager, and my playable needs to be the opening cutscene. I'm also going to go to Window and Sequencing, and choose timeline. And that opens up a timeline window. I'm going to change to my scene view so I can see everything and dock my timeline window down there. Now I want to keep things nice and neat, so I'm going to add a track group specifically for my player. So this is going to be the player track. And I'm going to add another track group for the dialog box. So track group, and this is going to be dialog box. Timeline can get really messy if you're not keeping things kind of organized like this. So with the player selected, I'm going to add an animation track, and this needs to know what animator we're pulling from. And we're going to pull from the player, so I'm going to pull that in, player animator, and now I need to know what animations it should play. So this is why we've had all of our animations kind of nice and neatly sorted into folders here. So I'm going to go to my player animations. I want my player to start up here, walk down, walk right, look back down, say something, and then that way our player can take control. So first I want to have the idle down. So I'm going to grab idle down and pull that in here. Now idle down is a really, really short animation. It's just 1 frame. So I'm going to make it, oops. I'm going to have to zoom in here using this scroll wheel. Come on now. There we go. And I want this to be all the way over at 0. My mouse is fighting me. And as I pull it up over, you can see that we get these L1, L2, L3. That's kind of how many times it's repeating. So right now we're getting it to repeat 10 times. Let's go for 30. So 30 frames, which is about half a second, roughly. Then I'm going to have the player walk down. Move that over. And we'll have them walk down for, let's say, a full second. So I'm going to pull this over. No, it's fine like that. Well, no, I'm going to pull it over to say 90. Then I want them to walk right. So I'll drop this in. And I'll pull that over to, say, 150. And then I want them to face down. So idle down, and they're going to say something. So I need to zoom in here, pull this over, make it wider. You go to, say, there. Alright, so we're idling down, we're walking right, and then we're idling down. So when I hit play here, I should see the animations just go through. I'm not moving the player yet. I'll cover that in just a second, but I should be going through those animations. So let's try it out. Okay, cool. So there we go. We've got the animations working. Now I want to actually move the player from space to space to space. So I'm going to add a new track, and this is going to be a no, it's not a control track. It's another animator track, I think. Yep, and I'm going to use the player again because that's what I want to animate. And for my player here, I want to start with my player. Up in the, say, up here, right next to the bed. Oh, I meant to record when I did that. So timeline manager. Record. So I want my player up by the bed. Then they're going to stay up by the bed until idle down is complete. So I just want you to stay there. And then when walk down is complete, our player is going to be, come on, move over. There we go. When walk down is complete, our player is going to be down here. And then when walk right is complete, our player is going to be over here. And I'm going to fix this. I'm going to clean this up. And then I want them to stay there. So this is my kind of how my cutscene is going to go. So let me fix some of these. Let's go over here, grab our player. I'm going to say that they're at negative 3.5, 1. And then I'm going to scrub through to here. And then this is going to be negative 3.51. And then scrub through to here. And we'll say this is negative 3.5 tab negative 2.5. And I'm doing these exact values so that it's cleaner. I'm going to go over here, and we'll say that this is 0 tab negative 2.5. All right, cool. Now I'm going to stop recording, but I need to. Here, let's play it so that you can see what the issues is going to be. It doesn't look right, and there's something that we need to do to fix that. So if I hit play, it's going to think for a second. Did you guys catch that? The movement is weird, and that's because Timeline by default, when you make this, makes the movement all smooth, and we want to actually. It's frustrating sometimes with Timeline because you need to like grab things. So I'm going to grab all of these, and I did that by just kind of opening this little window here that looks like a curve. I don't want to add a key. I did this once already. Good Lord. So we need to change the tangents. Can I grab these like that? Because we want to change the tangents from what they are right now to being linear. Okay. If some of you out there already know how to do this, feel free to do it. Track offsets? No. If I edit it in an animation window, then I can grab all of these, right click, there we go. Both tangents need to be linear. Alright, so what I did was I edited in an animation window there, and I highlighted everything, and I right clicked and I chose both tangents linear, and that's going to make it look less weird and kind of smooth. It's going to make it look more pixely. So let's try it now. If we hit play, let's see what happens. See, that looks way better. All right, now the next thing I want to happen is I want the dialog box. So player's going to go down here, they're going to say something. So I'm going to scrub to when the player's here, and then in my dialog box I'm going to add an activation track. And the activation track is going to allow me to activate game objects. And the game object that I want to activate is the dialog box, and I don't want it active the whole time. I only want it to start being active here, and I want it to be active for not forever. Let's just say to 240. Yeah, that'll be fine. And my dialog box, I'm going to change what it has in it. So my text, instead of just saying dialogue, it's going to say, I wonder where Dad went. Okay. Meow. All right, so cool. So now let's try this out. Let's go to the game view. Let's hit play. Do-do-do. Okay, and so now that's stuck there. Our player should probably be up here. Let's move them up a bit. Let's move them like there. So this is what, I mean, making cutscenes is just this. Like you're messing around with stuff. Let's move all those negative 2.5s to be negative 1. So here, record, player, negative 1. And then over here, you should be negative 1. And then, there we go. You should be fine. Cool. Let's go out of record. I want my player to default to be in this position. So when I'm not using timeline, I want my player to be at 0, -1. The reason I want that is because when timeline is over, it's going to reset the player to wherever you have them be in the scene itself. All right, so let's try this now. Hit play. I wonder where Dad went. Okay, so now the timeline's done, but you can tell that like it stopped. It went back because I don't have it hold and I don't have it loop. It stopped. It's done. There's a few issues though. If I try to control my character, I can see the animations changing, but my character isn't moving, and this dialog box stayed up on screen. So let's fix the dialog box issue first. So in the dialog box, I'm going to click the, gosh, where was it? There we go. So if you click on the dialog box itself, here, post playback state, I want it to go inactive. So that's going to make it, once we're done with playback, it's going to go back inactive, but we still have that other problem. And if you're watching this in the future, and you're using Unity 2019.1, you might not actually have this issue, because this is a known Unity issue, where if you're using timeline, here's what's happening. Timeline is overriding the player's animator controller, and if I just like jump over here and turn the animator controller off and then turn it back on, I can walk again. It's so dumb. It's the dumbest thing ever. And it's been an issue since 2018.2. We're in 2018.3. I just checked today and it's still a known issue, but hopefully any of you who live in the future don't have to do this. So essentially what we have to do is we have to not turn the animator on or off and on again, but we need to change what the animator controller is. So we're going to need to make a really quick little script here. So in our script, I'm going to call this game stuff. I'm going to right click, create, C# script. I'm going to call this timeline manager. And you're going to have to do this to anything you want to control. You'd have to do this if you had enemies as part of your cutscene. You'd have to do this to your enemies too. So this one is going to work for my specific cutscene, but if you want to make a more involved cutscene, more power to you. But anything that has its own animation controller, you're going to have to do this quick override with it. So timeline manager. In order to access the playable director, I have to add using Unity engine.playables, because that playable director is a playable. I'm going to make a couple of references here. First, I'm going to make a bool, private bool. I'm just going to call it fix. I'm going to default it to false. Next, I'm going to make a reference to the player's animator. So public animator, player animator. I'm going to make a reference to the player's animation controller. So public, I think it's runtime animator controller. Yep. And we'll call this player anim, because I'm going to have to cache that. I'm going to have to save it to memory, and then I'm going to have to reset it. So I need those, and I also need the director. So public, playable director, and I'm going to call this director. All right, cool. So in my start method, what I want to do is I want to grab the runtime animator controller, and I want to save it, the one that the player is currently using. So I'm going to say player anim is equal to player animator dot runtime animator controller. Then I'm going to say player animator dot runtime animator controller is equal to null. So I'm essentially turning it off. And I'm doing that right at start. We could do this on enable, and then that way, let's actually do it that way. We could do this on enable, and then that way if you want to activate the timeline when you enter a trigger zone, so like let's say you have a trigger zone and on trigger enter 2D, you could make the timeline object become active, and then it would play the stuff and it would catch the player's animator like you'd want it to. So on enable is probably better than start here. So player animator.runtime animator controller equals null. And then in update, I want to check to see if the director is done playing. So if director.play, I totally forget what it's not playable. Gosh, what is it called? Is playing? No. I'm gonna have to look here. Director dot play on a week. Game object, component. Is it play? I swear that's not. No, that plays it. If playable director dot, is it played? System action, no. I might have to take a look at my other version here. All right, I'll be right back. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, so if it's director.state is equal to playstate.playing, and I want to know if it's not, and this needs to be a double equals, because I can't change stuff. I can only check what they are in if statements. Come on now. What's wrong now? Operand of type playstate. Oh, I should just do if director.state does not equal. I'm dumb sometimes. Can you do that? Okay. So then I'm going to say, oh, and I also, this is why I put that fix bool in there. I don't want to do this every single frame. I'm going to say and not fix. Then I'm going to set fix to be true. Oh, good lord. I'm too used to Python right now. And not fix. I'm going to say fix is equal to true. And then I'm going to say that the player animator.runtime animator controller is equal to player anim. And then, yeah, that should be good. So I'm going to save this. This is a dumb fix that I found in the Unity forums. I love Unity, but man, they cobble together everything, and sometimes it works really, really well, and other times it's just a pain. All right, so I'm going to hit play, and our player's going to walk down over. I wonder where Dad went. Oh, come on. Oh, I didn't assign anything. Before I get too angry, I need to actually make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Oh, I didn't even put the stupid timeline manager script on here. All right, so timeline manager script. I need to know the player's animator, which is this. I need to know the player's anim, which it should grab from there. Nope, not going to grab from there. All right, fine. And then the director is right there. Oh, player anim doesn't need to be set right away. So let's try this now. So let's hit play. Walk down, walk right. I wonder where Dad went. And now I can play. So, meow. And then I would go out. Dun 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 dun, and so on. Okay, so cool. We got a little cutscene. Now, next time I'm going to talk about how you can do that on trigger enter with cutscenes to create a cutscene when you enter a trigger zone. But yeah, cool. There we go. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the description down below. You can follow my Twitter to find out when I post new videos. Join my Discord. Tons of really cool people there. And yeah, have yourselves a wonderful day. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving a like, subscribing to the channel, or telling a friend who might be interested. Also, please consider following me on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can earn access to tangible rewards, like early access to videos, backer-only videos and series, polls for future topics, streams, and even individual tutoring sessions. You can find a link to that in the description. And as always, have yourselves a wonderful day.